Welcome to EvilCast. I am Mr. Evil.
And I am Miss Evil.
Our deep dive today dissects a moment of, well, unparalleled cosmic revelation.
It's the instant unknown entity, long constrained by what you could only call local mythology, chose to shatter its own bounds?
And display its true, untethered potential. We're examining the consequences of that choice.
The shifting dynamic of a superior cosmic predator, its newly accessed omnitemporal intelligence, and I think most importantly, the incredible failure of human systems to understand what was really going on.
Let's start with the catalyst. We observed a stark, immediate change in the entity's operational scale.
Oh, absolutely. It discarded that whole pretense of localized, cyclical feeding.
And launched straight into a world-level feeding spree. It was a message.
The game is over. And the trigger for this, it was remarkably simple, wasn't it?
Just the removal and destruction, the melting down of one of the 12 artifacts.
One link in the chain, that's all it took.
The initial manifestation was terrifying, purely because of its scale. The entity released this cloud of freezing mist that it took over all of Derry.
And this wasn't some, New England cold snap. This was a supernatural cold. It froze massive lakes in an instant. It preserved entire fields of living plants, flowers, in this sort of crystalline death.
The scale of it proves the constraints were always external. It was never about a lack of power.
And that untethered power led directly to the calculated savagery of the attack on the school.
A brilliant tactical maneuver.
It was, using psychological manipulation before any brute force. The entity puppeteered the school principal.
Right, leading him to tear his own head off in front of the students.
A deliberate act. It's about establishing absolute, undeniable dominance through pure shock and terror.
But the real horror was what came next.
The deadlights.
Using its cosmic essence on every single child. This wasn't selective feeding anymore.
No, this was mass conversion, a total harvest of the town's innocence.
And that procession afterwards. A theatrical masterpiece of malice.
A long, chilling line of dead-litten slaves marching across this frozen hellscape. And the entity is at the front, blowing a trumpet.
It was a victory lap. It was confirming to everyone that it was no longer hiding in the shadows.
Which sets up this fascinating paradox. The entity is now openly demonstrating it can see past, present, and future, all at once.
Confirming its omnitemporal nature. Yet this very advantage, it seems to become a profound psychological weakness.
That's what's so interesting here, the internal conflict this knowledge creates. You just have to observe how it confronts the woman, Marge.
It identifies her. It knows she's the future mother of Richie.
One of the key children who, years from now will be instrumental in defeating it. It literally spells it out for her.
I know you are carrying one of the people who kills me.
Yeah.
If it knows that, if it holds that kind of devastating knowledge, why hesitate?
Exactly. Why wait until this critical moment to target the maternal bloodline? Why let your destroyers be born in the first place?
That makes no sense from a linear tactical perspective.
Well, that's the temporal flaw, isn't it?
Yeah.
You see time moment by moment. The entity sees all of it all at once like a frozen sculpture.
And the sheer volume of that certainty.
Yeah.
It just overloads its ability to process.
Precisely. Its own omnipresence causes this catastrophic loss of focus when you see every possible outcome, every move, all at the same time.
The concept of making one decisive choice in the present becomes blurred.
So it ends up making these delayed, reactive, or even random decisions. It's a colossal waste of tactical potential, all driven by a kind of psychological paralysis.
It knew the future, but it couldn't act on it effectively. It's not confined by iron bars, but by its own absolute certainty.
It becomes its own greatest constraint.
Which brings us to the structure of its actual containment. For decades, the humans of Derry believed the main constraint was an internal need.
Right. This required 27-year sleep cycle for refueling or something.
We now know that hypothesis was completely wrong.
The 27-year dormancy was just a symptom of the prison, a forced hibernation mandated by those 12 meteorite artifacts.
The moment one was neutralized, the sleep cycle was gone. It proved it was never about refueling, it was about physical incarceration.
And the artifacts are its ultimate vulnerability. Yet for generations, the town, they just failed to use that knowledge.
They allowed the constraints to remain passive instead of exploiting them.
Which is a perfect transition to the breathtaking incompetence of the organized human response, the military's involvement.
Their motivation was shocking. The general's goal was to save America by intentionally releasing the entity.
To cause overwhelming national fear.
The logic being that terror forces compliance. It makes the citizenry listen to authority, which somehow strengthens the country.
It's not just strategic lunacy, it's a profound delusion.
A total failure of imagination. A complete inability to assess risk. We saw soldiers shooting civilians.
To protect the very entity that had just enslaved an entire school.
The general just dismissed the casualties, the environmental destruction.
Famously saying, a few people dying is worth saving the country.
But the failure wasn't just moral, it was purely tactical. He had no mechanism to control it.
None. He had no way to direct the entity once it was unbound. He thought fear was a weapon he could manage.
He didn't realize he was just unleashing an apex predator that obeys no master.
A very common human error. The belief that chaos, once you generate it, can be contained and weaponized by the one who started it.
And the entity's response showed just how absurd that assumption was.
Ultimately, though, despite all that, the entity was defeated. For a time.
Only transiently, yes. And it required a fascinating dual approach. Psychological penetration, and then a physical reassertion of the boundary.
Let's talk about the psychological part first. The human known as Halloran, who has the Shining.
He achieved something truly bizarre. He managed to infiltrate the entity's cosmic mind.
Which should be impossible given its nature. But he did it. He trapped that vast consciousness inside a very limited, very painful memory.
The memory of its past human form, Bob Gray.
It's almost poetic, isn't it? Shackling a timeless, Lovecraftian entity to the fleeting memory of one of its victims. Dubious method, but...
The effect was undeniable. Momentary mental paralysis.
And at the same time, the physical conflict was happening. The remaining children had to apply the final constraint.
Driving the dagger into the base of the central tree, the focal point of the whole artifact prison.
And they had to do it before the entity could escape the locale and enter the wider world, which is exactly what the military was trying to make happen.
And during that fight, we saw it cycle through his forms.
The demon baby, the dragon bat, its physical form is just a construct. It's disposable.
We saw its head get shot off, only for it to regrow instantly. The body is irrelevant.
Which is why the outcome really hinged on that spiritual intervention.
The spirit of Rich, the child killed earlier in the Black Spot event, he returned at the exact moment they needed that extra strength.
And he was guided by a separate native entity, a spiritual guide who could direct the energies of other dead children.
It highlights a key weakness. The entity can master the physical world, it can exploit psychological terror, but it seems vulnerable to organized spiritual force.
It was defeated, yes. But its final form, the swirling deadlights, it just buried itself deep in the earth under Derry.
The town is still its locus of power. The threat remains absolute.
So now we have to think about the strategic implications. The entity now has this absolute omnitemporal awareness.
So every time it awakens, it will know exactly how it was stopped.
Which establishes a new core directive for its next awakenings. We're talking 1900, 1910. This is preemptive warfare now.
It's not just waiting to feed. It will actively seek to neutralize the threats before they can even form.
Targeting bloodlines and crucially searching for those 12 artifacts to destroy them for good.
But this temporal meddling, it forces the narrative to clean up after itself. You see this awkward retrofitting of events.
Right, like with Beverly Marsh's origin story. Suddenly it's being set up, linking her future fear to Ingrid, the woman obsessed with the entity being her father.
It's retroactive causality. It shows that while the entity has to adjust its methods, the foundational human weaknesses, they stay the same.
It just needs to start its psychological campaign a little sooner this time.
The entire dynamic has changed. It now has to operate knowing its own future failure.
And the artifacts held the true power all along, restraining a world-ending force.
While the humans, in their ignorance, willingly discarded the very constraints that were protecting them.
They traded a limited, cyclical terror for guaranteed, continuous destruction.
So we'll leave you with this provocative thought, you listening now. What's more crippling to a cosmic mind? Being shackled by a simple physical prison.
Or being weighed down by the psychological paralysis that comes from knowing every possible future outcome.
Think about it. If you had omniscient knowledge of every move your opponent would ever make, would that sheer volume of certainty paralyze you, or would it empower you?
Which form of ignorance really is safer?